weekend, Donald Trump tweeted an edited video featuring Ilhan Omar, Representative Ilhan Omar, and images or video from 9/11. Now, this was all an effort to continue pushing this narrative that Representative Omar is minimizing what happened on 9/11. Of course, this is nothing more than a political ploy, an effort to defame her as someone who hates America, which of course is not the case. Now, I'm not gonna show the video. I know that there are other programs on this network that refuse to show the video that Trump tweeted because I have no interest in amplifying his disgusting and false message. But just to give you an idea, on Friday he shared an edited video superimposing the remarks, Ilhan Omar's remarks, over images and clips of the 2001 terrorist attacks that appeared to suggest Omar was dismissing what happened. Again, she did not dismiss what happened. Now, with that said, Representative Omar had already been the target of violent attacks. In fact, one man was arrested because he had called into her office, spoke to some staffers, and made very specific threats of violence against them. Again, that person has been arrested. But following Trump's tweet, the death threats have increased. In fact, she released a statement saying, quote, "Since the president's tweet Friday evening, I have experienced an increase in direct threats on my life, many directly referencing or replying to President Trump's videos or the president's video." So before I go into some other parts of the story, I want you guys to jump in. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's deliberate, the notion that you could juxtapose these images from 9/11, which you know represent so much and really galvanize people in so many ways, and that you could juxtapose them with this person who you're trying to suggest, quite obviously, I would say clunkily, but in another way effectively, is I think it's even worse than what he would, well, I think it's even worse than suggesting that she didn't speak strongly enough for it. I think the worst part is he's suggesting that people like her are responsible for it, right? I mean, isn't that really what's going on here? He's trying to galvanize hate against the Muslim community, and she's sort of the head of that parade as he sees it. So I think that's and here's another thing, just as an aside, as a practical matter. You know, congressional people don't have a lot of security around them. You saw what happened to Gabby Giffords when she was out with her constituency, just meeting people. In other words, you know, we think of representatives and politicians on Capitol Hill as being surrounded by security. That's just not the case. And so here she is, very recognizable, right? She doesn't blend into that crowd. And he is singling her out as someone who, again, I suggest the video is making the point that people like her are responsible for 9/11. They don't share the same pain that other Americans do over this awful terrorist act.
Yeah, I think I guess his reasoning doesn't matter too much when what he's trying to do is get a woman of color in elected office killed. That's what he wants to do. That's the terrible thing. Figuring out exactly why he's doing it is interesting, I guess. I agree with you that it's not about what she said. I mean, as we'll get into, he has said things that minimize 9/11 far worse than anything that she said. He has repeatedly joked about it. He thinks it's funny. Anyway, but they see her and they see everything that they don't want to happen to the US.
I mean, in reality, there has been a very successful fear-mongering campaign in regard to Muslims in America. And that campaign has gone on for far too long. And I think that what Donald Trump is doing here is tapping into that fear regarding Muslims. I mean, would she be treated the same way if she happened to be a white Christian who made the exact same statements during a meeting, right? So she goes to this conference, and the whole point of the conference was to draw attention to how Muslims in America have been treated as second-class citizens, especially after 9/11. And so she's speaking off the cuff, and she says, in essence, Muslims have been treated this way because some people did something. And when you're speaking off the cuff, I mean, and you're speaking in passing, sometimes you don't use the best language. You don't go deep into the history of what happened. She's trying to make a statement about how Muslims are being treated. That was the point of her statement. It wasn't about the severity of 9/11. It wasn't commentary about the severity of 9/11. And I think all of us understand that severity. We all, not all, some of us might be too young to remember, or maybe weren't even born yet. But for those of us who were old enough to remember, we know the severity. The idea that every single time you're talking about something that's related to 9/11, you have to like sit down and really hone in on the severity of it is ridiculous. And I've seen people on the right over and over again not do that and then not get criticized because it's a ridiculous thing to criticize people for.
If only we could all articulate our thoughts and issues the way the president can. You know what I mean? Just always have the right words available. It's difficult.
Yeah.
Well, let's do this. Let's do this. Why don't we take a look at how our president articulated his feelings on 9/11 and the severity of what happened, because he has been on the record talking about it.
Donald, you have one of the landmark buildings down in the financial district, 40 Wall Street. Did you have any damage, or did you know what's happened down there?
Well, it was an amazing phone call I made. 40 Wall Street actually was the second tallest building in downtown Manhattan, and it was actually, before the World Trade Center, was the tallest. And then when they built the World Trade Center, it became known as the second tallest, and now it's the tallest.
Okay.
It's a silver lining.
This is insane. I mean,
the only appropriate response there is, look, what's happening with my building is not really important, because what's happening to America right now in this moment, blah, 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 all the things that reflect the seriousness of the event. But of course, Trump is already all about himself, so he welcomes a question about him and his real estate holdings.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's indicative of who Donald Trump is when it comes to anything, right? It always goes back to, what does he get out of the situation? What's best for his businesses? What's best for his profit motive? There was also an appearance he made on Howard Stern's show, yes. And there was some joking going on in regard to 9/11 as well. So let's take a look at that.
What Rudy said was there should be a huge memorial, and it should contribute to the skyline of New York in the same way that the World Trade Center.
I'm starting to agree with that.
I don't know, maybe we should build a television tower there.
Right.
Believe me, a statue of your girlfriend would be perfect right there.
Well, that would be a nice idea.
Well, nobody's going to fly into that, right?
No one would. No one would even mess with that.
I'd like to fly into that.
But wait, Anna, I was looking at that graphic while that was playing, and we're being a little bit deceptive here. Because what Ilhan Omar is alleged to have made light of, she did that 18 years after the attack. He was joking about it 1 year after the attack. So that's better, right? The 1 year anniversary of the attack, he's joking along about his wife having a statue there, as they joke about planes being flown once again into that spot.
That's right. And one other thing is, he, instead of building a memorial, he suggested a television tower, which again goes back to what's best for him, what he looks at as a possible opportunity for himself. It all goes back to me, Trump, 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 Trump. But anyway, look, the left doesn't use these dirty political tactics that we're seeing on the right now, right? So I didn't see many on the left take advantage of that conversation to destroy Donald Trump politically, destroy his reputation
during the election.
Yeah, it's exactly. That's not what we do, right? And I don't know. I don't want to engage in that. But I feel like right now there's this disgusting, divisive political atmosphere where if you're not willing to get in the dirt and fight like them, or in the mud and fight like them, well, then you're at a huge disadvantage, because they will slander you, they will come after you, they will smear you, and that's exactly what's happening to Representative Omar, to the point where her life is at risk.
Yeah. So there's like 3 levels of terrible things going on simultaneously right now. Again, I want to just remind everyone, the worst is that the president of the United States is using social media to encourage someone to assassinate a sitting member of Congress. That's the worst. Then there's the hypocrisy over talking about 9/11. They say Ilhan Omar made light of it. She didn't speak about it with the reverence and gravitas that it's due, but we know that that's not actually what they feel, because they don't care that Donald Trump has openly joked about it. So they're lying about the communication around 9/11. But they also don't care about the substance of it either, because we know that regardless of what a person says about 9/11, there have been people in a position to do something about the aftermath of that attack. And when it has come to like giving medical benefits to people who were injured while doing the cleanup. How many years did we have to have wars with politicians, generally on the right, stopping that aid from being given? Are they being condemned in the same way that Ilhan Omar is for an offhand remark?
Yeah, let me give you some names.
On the communication and the substance, the people who are pretending that 9/11 is the most important thing ever to them, they are simply lying. It is sometimes situationally important to them if it hurts a Democrat and especially a Muslim woman of color.
So I remember the debates that happened in Congress in regard to funding for the first responders who are suffering from some horrible health issues because of that cleanup effort, right? Respiratory issues, cancer. And House Judiciary Chairman at the time, Representative Bob Goodlatte, and Fred Upton, who's a Republican from Michigan, they were fighting it. They were fighting the funding. So Democrats wanted to make those health benefits permanent for the first responders. And you had people like Goodlatte and Upton fighting to make it temporary, 5 years. And they also wanted to underfund it. So I'm bringing that up because, look, anyone can demagogue, anyone can fearmonger, but take a good hard look at what people have done policy-wise, how they've voted, because it's very easy and very popular to go out there and pretend like you're this big warrior and fighter for victims of 9/11 or for the American people against terrorism. But if you look at their actions, I think that reveals more about who took those events seriously, who looked at it as an opportunity to engage in war, who looked at it as a profit motive, and who looked at it as a real tragedy and something that needed to, push for more security in America. Like,
sure, they're weaponizing it is really what we're talking about. They're weaponizing a message. They're taking this awful thing, I mean, and that we all agree is all, so they've got the one thing that we can all agree on, and they're weaponizing it. But as Anna says, then there's no follow through for those who helped with the cleanup. They did the same thing with veterans, Donald Trump wraps himself in the flag and he wraps himself in veterans, and yet, big on war. I mean, the GOP has this history of war, and I know not all GOP is the same, and please, if you're GOP, you might have been against the war in Iraq, but let's face it, under a Republican administration, they went to war in Iraq, they created a generation of veterans who have all kinds of issues, but when it comes down to the follow through with those veterans, they're nowhere in sight.
Yeah.
There's no money for those veterans. So you can wrap yourself in these issues, but as Anna says, there's no follow through. It's clearly a bankrupt notion.
So I want to just quickly mention a few other things, especially how Pelosi reacted to this. So following the president's tweet, she says, "I spoke with the sergeant at arms to ensure that Capitol Police are conducting a security assessment to safeguard Congresswoman Omar, her family, and her staff. They will continue to monitor and address the threats she faces." So I'm glad she did that, and that was an appropriate response. But prior to that response, she said the following. Pelosi originally said in a statement Saturday that memory of 9/11 is sacred ground and any discussion of it must be done with reverence. So there's a lot of this coming from the left, which is disheartening. A lot of strong talk about this is the way 9/11 needs to be talked about. And then, it's usually followed with, but we need to protect Representative Omar. Look, I get it. 9/11 was a serious tragedy, a severe tragedy. But when someone's speaking off the cuff and they're speaking in passing about something else, about discrimination and how certain people are treated as second-class citizens, I think it's fine to take a good hard look at their intentions before judging their statement, because I don't think that Representative Omar meant to minimize what happened at 9/11 at all.
See, I disagree to some extent. Maybe you've got more of the thing. Do you have more of what politicians have said?
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that a little later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but there are some strong statements coming from some people on the left. We'll
yeah, that's why I was gonna say I think that hers stands out in particular because she decided to throw Ilhan under the bus at the same time that she's saying that we need to protect her. Whereas most appeared to not fall into that trap.
Right, yeah. So
last point, Anna, I just want to underscore what you're saying, which is that I think that Omar was trying to a specific audience, as Anna pointed out, trying to point out how 9/11 was being used to subjugate or discriminate against this one community. And so I don't think she said it in the most eloquent way. I don't think she said it with quite the words that, like when she plays it back in her mind, oh, damn, I should have said, maybe I should have been a little more explicit in my condemnation. I think she probably would say that in her heart of hearts. But to use this, we all know her intent. We all know the point she was making. To use this in this way is just, it's sad, especially on the left. As we were saying, I mean, we just eat our own on the left. There's a purity test always, and this is another example of it.
So I want to just give you a final statement from Representative Omar. This is on Twitter. She said the following: I did not run for Congress to be silent. I did not run for Congress to sit on the sidelines. I ran because I believed it was time to restore moral clarity and courage to Congress to fight and defend our democracy. She is one of the strongest people I have ever seen in Congress or in America, period. She's very courageous to keep pushing forward, even given the amount of threats that she's receiving right now, threats that have been pushed against her by our own president. Yeah,
and to receive kind of middling support, not just in this instance, but in past ones from the people that the leadership in your party that should be defending you, who themselves have been the target of these sorts of attacks from Donald Trump. They should know better, and she's trying to do all the different work that she's doing at the same time that she's being vilified by the right on a daily basis on Fox News and by Donald Trump, receiving only kind of some support from the Democrats and receiving death threats at the same time, receiving death threats even before Donald Trump's thing, let alone after. And then he tweeted again this morning, inspiring potentially more violence against her. I don't envy the position that she has to hold, but she's still trying to get everything done.
The TYT Plus app is now available on iOS and Android. Download to get more TYT content at tyt.com/app.